It's the Daily Doug.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Daily Doug. Thanks for being with me today. On the program today, my friends, we are getting back to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I just could not wait. I couldn't help myself. We got to get to side 2 of Trilogy, y'all. We are coming off of a very enjoyable episode this past Friday where we listened to all of side 1 from Trilogy by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And like I said, I just can't wait. I very much enjoyed listening to all of that side of music. And while we're hot on some ELP, let's get to side 2, So let's get to it here. As a reminder, Trilogy is ELP's third studio album. They released it in June of 1972. Side 1 had The Endless Enigma. It had From the Beginning, The Sheriff, and their cover of Copeland's Hoedown from Rodeo. And I was very intrigued by the Copeland cover. I think it's really cool that progressive rock musicians, especially of this era, are really going forward with progressive ideas and pushing the envelope and the technology forward, but they've also got one foot in the past with the great pieces that have come before them, and there's a really lovely melding together of just musical expression, and it's personified here so far in this album, and people have told me that side 2 is even more enjoyable. So on side 2 we get 3 selections. First up is Trilogy, the title track, and that one I have heard previously. I first listened to this one as part of our very first fan favorites video. That was in February of 2022. I later segmented this one and released it to YouTube. I haven't heard this in a couple of years, y'all, so it'll be almost like hearing it again. I hope that I remember some of it. The second song that we will hear is called Living Sin, and then the third song is called Abbadon's Bolero, which is an instrumental. So I'm very much looking forward to it. We only have 3 tracks on this side, and I think based on what y'all have told me, it's going to be quite a fun time. So let's get to it, y'all. We've got Keith Emerson on the Hammond C3. He's on the Steinway. He's on the Moog. He's on the Mini Moog. He's on every keyboard he can get his hands on. Here, Greg Lake is on vocals and bass and guitars, and Carl Palmer is on drums and percussion. Trilogy starts us out this side, and like its title suggests, it's a piece in 3 parts. And I believe that these 3 sections are relatively unrelated. So let's see what they're talking about here and what the music sounds like. This is Trilogy, side 2 from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Off we go. Major key.
I've tried to mend the love that ended long ago.
Ish.
Although we still pretend our love is surely coming.
It's B major.
to an end. Don't waste the time, you've got to love again. We tried to lie, but you
It's got that minor 4 chord in there.
no better than to let each other lie. The thought
Lovely.
of lying to you makes me cry.
The thought of lying to you makes me cry.
Counting up the time that's passed us by.
So this is about a relationship?
Send this letter hoping it will reach your hand. And if it does, I hope that you will understand that I must leave in a while. And though
It's almost like a
I
recitative
smile,
in
you
through
know
here.
the smile is only there to hide what I'm really feeling deep inside. Just a face where I can hang my pride.
It's a relationship that has ended in a breakup. Beautiful piano. It's about a love that has ended. Right? I've tried to mend the love that ended long ago, although we still pretend. I think he's transitioning here to something different. Changes again. What? Those are half steps. 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely a contrasting section. Not only is it asymmetrical, it's toggling on a half step. So it's quite unstable for me. So this is setting up as something that's repeated harmonically, and he's soloing over the top of these two chords. I don't remember any of this, by the way, y'all. It goes to show you, it's good for me to return to these songs. Wow! You knew the synth had to come in at some point. All right. Drums sound incredible, y'all.
We'll talk the places that we went, the times that we had spent together, penniless and free. You'll see the day another way, and wake up with the sunshine pouring right down where you lay.
I think I remember part of this section. That vocal sounds familiar. All of them. Drums are great, bass is kicking, Keys on Another Planet. It's ELP. Much reverb and life in this sound. I wonder if they overdubbed this. I read a lot about them overdubbing constantly, especially on this side of the album. They land in B flat. The whole thing is around B flat.
Your love again, I don't know when, but if you do, I know that you'll be happy in the
Six or 6/8. Why not? Wow, I've got this set to go completely through the album, y'all, so it's gonna move on to Living Sin, and I'm gonna let it go. So much fun! From Trilogy.
Will you stand up or will you freeze?
Hello?
That savage woman make you please.
Is that Greg?
Turn your inside outside in.
Landing on 5. 1. D minor. It's like ELP does Zeppelin. amazing, friends. It's like a rock and roll riff, but it's still prog. Check it out, Living Sin. It's rolling right on into Abbadon's Bolero, y'all, and we're going to finish out the side. That was amazing. This is an instrumental as we close out the album. And I kept thinking, is this a composer I don't know? Who is Abbadon, and what does their Bolero sound like? Abbadon is not a composer. It's a reference to mythology. It's the Hebrew word for destruction or doom. So a translation might be Hell's Bolero, you know. In fact, this was originally called Belana's Bolero, named for the goddess of war. So coming after Living in Sin, or Living Sin, let's see what a Bolero in Hell sounds like. Okay? Long build up here. That's getting louder. It stayed quiet longer than I thought it would, because you know it's got to get big. So this will be an excursion in layering, I think. Just layering these ideas, I think, on one on top of the other as they go. That's what I'm expecting. Almost like a wedge form. It starts, and whatever starts never stops, and we keep adding and adding and adding to it. Get the sense of it moving up by half step, but it's doing so in an odd way. Those are fascinating harmonies. Very chromatic. But the rhythmic pattern is connecting it a bit so we don't feel as much chromaticism as there actually is. A lot of flips on common tones. Reminds me a bit of Star Wars music. He's got me confused harmonically. I lost all sense of where I am. By half step. That's a chromatic third. I think they're chromatic thirds. This is coming back. This is I've heard before. By half step, up by a minor third. So this comes back. And I think he's an A. But I could be wrong. There's no real form to this, y'all. There's no contrasting section. There's no A. There's no B. No ternary or binary. Wow. Main idea. And again, stuff layered over the top of it. By a half step again. That they've done before. A tritone away. All of that. I think that's what they did at the end. It was like a tritone to 1 instead of 5 to 1. Might as well. Holy shit, y'all. What a piece of music. When I said that there's no real form to it, there's no, I mean, normally our music, the way that we put our ideas together is similar to how we put our ideas together in rhetoric, in speech. Like if you're asked to give a speech, what do? You give them a thesis and tell them what you're going to say. And then you go through your topics and you have different sections, right? And then you get to the end and you remind them of how they intercolate maybe or interrelate to each other. And then you remind them of what they just heard. And there is patterns and repetitions to what we communicate and how we communicate to make sure that we get the most meaning conveyed at any given time. This is a different type of thing. I would call it an arch form or a wedge form, where we start with something small, and then it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows until it's at the end, and then it just kind of cuts off, which is what this did. You start soft, you know, just setting that rhythm, and like, okay, cool, I've got that. It's almost like looping these days, right? Okay, now I've got that loop. What can I put over the top of that? Ooh, let's put that on. Let's put a bass line on. Let's put this synth. Let's put a different synth. Why the hell not? Let's put 8 or 9 different synths or bass or something on top of it. And it just allows all of these different permutations to come through, and it almost becomes hypnotic, right? And in this instance, being called Abbadon's Bolero, being a reference to some sort of war or doom or something that's impending or hell. It's something that's coming your way and you can't get out of the way. Maybe. Really, really cool. And the song before it, Living Sin, was really cool. It was as close to a rock and roll riff, like a heavy metal riff, as I've heard from these guys. Like I said, I could have heard some Led Zeppelin popping through if there were more guitars in it. And then Trilogy, a true trilogy, in that it's like, okay, this section, and this section, and there's 3 parts. I guess we'll call it Trilogy. You know? Unbelievable sounds here on this side of the album, y'all. And I found references as I was reading in about these songs that say that these particular songs were very rarely, if ever, performed live by the band. And I can understand why, especially with Trilogy and Abbadon's Bolero. We've got really thickly layered arrangements that are sophisticated, and I would guess to be quite difficult to recreate on stage. And in fact, with the Bolero piece, I read that there was this one time where they were using a pre-recorded tape to help them get through the piece on stage, and the tape malfunctioned during the performance, and it wreaked havoc with the performance, and they cut it after that, and they didn't start performing it again until their 1977 tour, when they were accompanied by an orchestra. That would be a little bit easier. Hey, let's give the orchestra a part. We can actually get to ours in real time. Living Sin apparently was never played by ELP live, and they attempted Trilogy a few times during their 1972 tour, but they dropped it after only a handful of attempts. So the songs that we get here, I think, especially when I've heard from ELP fans, they're beloved tracks, especially Trilogy. But they were, the ELP fans really were looking forward to hear this side of the album, and I understand, why they're doing it. It's a fascinating thing, y'all. They put the best of both worlds out there, and I alluded to this in the intro. They're definitely moving forward. They're definitely challenging the musical norms of their day. They're being aggressive with their progressive approach to music, but they also have a very high regard for their musical past, the music that has come before them, especially with their inclusion of covers of classical tunes, like Hoedown on this album, like Pictures at an Exhibition that they did as a live album. We've heard Fanfare for the Common Man from this group previously on the channel, and I'm sure they've done more. Some are just flat out quotes or covers of entire pieces. Others are like little snippets of things, but Keith has a lot of these classically minded and classically written riffs in his mind, and he's just churning it with his compadres into this almost over-the-top exuberance of what can be done with technology in the recording process at the time. And what we get is a fascinating bit of music. It's got the best of all worlds musically in there, and it definitely is unique, for sure, y'all. They're meticulous and they're exacting, but they're also impulsive. and they're open to improvisation and, of course, to virtuosity. And I think in this album, all of that shines through, and it makes for a lovely, lovely listening experience, and it makes for a record that's music, whose music holds up all these years later. Don't you think? I mean, this is 52 years old now, and sounds great to me, y'all. Sounds great. I will definitely listen to this one again. I'm not sure where in the pantheon of their albums I'm going to put it just yet, but it is a great album. I also remember on the first side having the pacing just so well done of the different types of sounds that the band is able to achieve, and I think I get more of the same here. The disparate parts of Trilogy, the funky kind of metal rock and roll approach to Living Sin, and then that funky March to Hell with Abbadon's Bolero, and then all of it ends, I think, on a tritone to one. Instead of 5-1, 5-1, it's a tritone away to one. And why the hell not? Why the hell not? It's Emerson, Lake and Palmer, y'all. And what a fun time this was. I'm glad that I took the opportunity to sneak in this second side before I really lost track of the sounds from side one. It's great to get back to this album and complete it. Trilogy. Side 2 has been today, but in the past week, we've listened to all of this great album, and I thank y'all for your support and for hanging out with me today. That is all for this episode. I'll see you next time on another edition of The Daily Doug.